Food security exists when all people at all times have physical and economic access to sufficient, safe, nutritious foods to meet their dietary needs and food preferences for an active and healthy lifestyle. Welcome to AGRISCOPE as we continue with snippets of the National Inaugural Agricultural Food Security and Economic Summit. Professor Denzel Williams, Executive Director of the Mona School of Business, now looks at emerging opportunities of the agricultural sector.
Now, if you look at this picture on the table here, it suggests to you that we're in serious problem. That's really what it says in summary, because we have been unable to grow the economy in any significant way. So when you look at GDP growth, what it shows to you is that we will not be able to return to the robust growth period of, say, 2009, 2007, thereabout, until roughly about 2018. Yeah, that's really what it is saying. So we have a problem. But significantly, when you look at some other metrics as they relate to economic growth, you will realize why the problem is actually compounded. So when you look at things like our fiscal balance, which is really government expenditure over government revenue, you would have recognized that we have been doing a very poor job at this. We have been running very high fiscal deficit for a long time, and we won't be able to run a fiscal surplus anytime soon until about 2017. For the current year, the government will be tabling a budget roughly of about $453 billion. Now, of that $453 billion, the government has to run a primary balance of 7.5%, yes, which roughly is about 134 billion. Similarly, government has to run a fiscal deficit of only 0.1%, according to the IMF standards. At that rate, the government also has to keep wage to the public sector at 9% of its gross domestic product. The gross domestic product, if we are to believe what the numbers are saying now, really has to grow by roughly 10% in nominal terms or 2% in real terms for you to be able to have a wage bill of $158 billion, which is coming this year. So if you look at the $453 billion, you have the main items, which are programs, which are supposed to run you at about $116 billion. Interest on the debt is another about $134 billion. So there you're talking about almost $258 billion. And then you're talking about another $158 billion, which is roughly almost $400 billion you're running to already for just programs, interest, and wages. So part of the issue you talk about, Dr. Emil, is the issue of assets. So there are a lot of latent assets lying idle around. The government really needs to use them. Critical. Yeah? We talk about buildings, we talk about land, we talk about all these things. They need to use them. We talk about infrastructure investments. It's needed. And that's why I'm very worried that if we're going to do the things that we need to do, we're going to cut back on the capital budget. Because if you're being truthful to yourselves, you would recognize that we have passed 6 IMF tests, but the significant reason for passing those tests is that we continue to cut the capital budget. Yeah? And that's why you're not going to get growth. So I am suggesting that we need to leave the capital budget because $45 billion is not enough money to generate this type of investment that needs growth. We actually need about $100 billion in the capital budget to generate growth. And therefore, what I'm suggesting is that infrastructure investments in roads, buildings, NHT monies must be used up. This idea that NHT is sitting down on $200 billion is a joke. It must be used up. The medium term, energy issue has to be dealt with. There's no doubt about that. Yeah? When we're talking about 32 cents per kilowatt of energy versus 3 cents in Trinidad and stuff like that, it's a real issue. It's real. There international competitiveness we have to build that through the cost of doing business, because everybody in here who operates a business will tell you it's tough to do business in Jamaica. It's really tough. Red tape, the bureaucracy, all sorts of things, they cost you. The cost of crime and corruption is an added cost to business. So we have to deal with that, all right? We have a problem with law and order in this country. We have a problem, and there's no investor that's going to come and put their money in this country if we don't seriously deal with the issues of law and order. We are becoming too lawless. we're becoming a place where it just becomes intolerable to live, to do business, to work. And we can't continue like that. We have to seriously think about law and order as an important part of generating growth in Jamaica. It's critical. The real question becomes, why aren't we able to implement them? And the real issue is lack of leadership and management. That's what we need to move the growth forward.
When we talk about the youth sector in Jamaica, we are talking about just over 600,000 young people who are in the age group 15 to 24 and who are in fact are overly represented in our unemployment statistics. The truth is that youth unemployment rate is just over 31% compared to the national rate, which is somewhere around 13.2%. It therefore means that there is tremendous capacity in this negative piece of statistics for us to move these unemployed hands into a sector that has tremendous capacity for absorption. 61% of the murders committed in this country over the last 3 years were in fact committed by youngsters between the age 15 to 24. The question I'd ask is whether or not there is a correlation between crime and employment. I just want to share with you this schematic that laid the basis for our approach to youth in agriculture. The trends that we are detained by are in fact not necessarily unique to Jamaica, but if you look at the data, you'd recognize that where we are heading is the emergence of the new food economy. In fact, 30 years ago, economies were measured on their military might. And then we moved to technology, and in the last 5 to 10 years, we talk about the educational economy. Today, the preoccupation of economies is about the ability for economy to secure their population by having adequate supply of food. The truth is that if you're going to sell agriculture to young people, it has to be sexy. And the reason why many young people are not enrolling in the vocational institution, and the reason why many of them are not opting for primary agricultural in participation is because the way we have done it has not proven to be attractive to them. And so we must use technology, we must get best practice from where they exist in the world, and to bring them to bear on the way we do it if we are going to get more and more young people to participate in agriculture.
Production from world fisheries and aquaculture is increasing. There was an increase in production from 140.7 metric tons in 2007 to 158 metric tons in 2012. And that is total production as it relates to fisheries, capture fisheries and aquaculture. Demand is being driven by an increasing appetite globally for fish. It is estimated that in 2012, the per capita consumption of fish increased to about 9.2 kilograms, an increase from the 1960s where it was 9.9 kilograms. In Jamaica, of course, that consumption pattern has also been increasing. Expansion in aquaculture production globally was at a rate of 6.2% between the years 2000 to 2012. Basically, aquaculture has been deemed one of the fastest animal protein producing sectors in the world. In terms of Jamaica, the converse is occurring. There was a steady increase in marine capture fisheries and aquaculture production between the years 2000 to 2006. From there on, there was a steady decline. In the case of capture fisheries, there would be an apparent leveling off in terms of production. In aquaculture, there has been a precipitous decline. In terms of strategies for growth, the Fisheries Division does believe that there is the need for comprehensive policy and regulation as it relates to fisheries development. At the macro level, we believe that there does need to be formulated a country strategy which will ensure that fisheries is appropriately placed on the development agenda and it is appropriately funded. In this regard, the Fisheries Division has been involved in the preparation of policy, regulations, as well as development plans with respect to various fisheries in Jamaica. Basically, in conclusion, in order for us to achieve sustained growth in the fisheries sector, there is the need for cooperation at all levels to ensure that projects and programs are developed and successfully implemented, and it is strongly felt that with the proper policy, management, stakeholder input, and support for these strategies, these will be useful in creating a very positive impact on the resuscitation of the fisheries and aquaculture subsectors.
The small ruminant industry can play a vital role. If I say something to you, you might be shocked. Goat meat is the cheapest part of the goat industry. It's not the meat, the skin and the milk, the amount of things, the value added that you from the goat and sheep industry, especially the goat, can make you rich people. But we in Jamaica, because we love it so much, we eat ourselves into poverty by just focusing on the meat. When I went to Texas and tasted ice cream made from goat's milk, I can say again, Devon House has nothing over it. It's one of the best ice cream in the world. The perfume, the soap, is a beauty soap. Vibes Cartel is ramping when they talk about bleaching. That beauty soap can take off everything off your face, ladies. And there are people that are trained that are right here in Jamaica, but we do not have any goat's milk. A pound of goat cheese costs more than a pound of coffee. It is a fact. And if you go into the supermarkets, one of Sovereign, goat's milk, not the milk powder is in that supermarket. Would you believe that right now we are importing goat skin to make leathercraft? When we took over or started that initiative in 1987, there were 200,000 head of goats in Jamaica. Today, after 27 years, we have 700,000. You might say, but that is very slow growth. But what is the big problem? We are eating out the females because we love goats so much. We have written legislations that are on the government desk from 1990. Yes, in the 1990s, to put a legislation on the slaughtering of females of a certain age. Once they are at a certain age, you must not slaughter them. And those that you import in this country, do not slaughter them. And we cannot get it off the desk in the Ministry of Agriculture to go to Parliament until today. Right now, FAO, they are saying if anything, God forbid that should happen, if anything should happen to the poultry industry, where would we get our animal protein? Is the milk industry, again, for dairy industry is way down. How can we push milk production when you're planting people onto the dairy lands? To milk, the government used to milk 300 heads of dairy goats at Hounslow, twice a day, just like cows. And you have goats there that would give you 6 liters of milk daily. And we used to send it to dairy industries who used to make it into cheese and sell it to the tourists. Today we don't have to do that. We have taught lots of people how to make cheese, how to make the soap, how to make the perfume. Everything is right here in Jamaica. We need 3,000 head of goats to make us self-sufficient in goat production, in meat production. 3 million, and we have 700,000.
The summit ended with summaries from Senator Norman Grant, President of the JAS, and Ambassador Ariel Fernandez, Argentina's ambassador to Jamaica.
I take this conference as a challenge to the Jamaica Agricultural Society and all the other sectors to engage persons and corporations as we have done today to partner with us to see how we can expand and develop the small farmer so that he can be more productive. I think that we need to bring up the small man and make all these many small men and women big men and women in a collective way. And that's why the cooperative movement is important. And what we need to do also, we need to get the message as small farmers, because we take time sometimes not to cooperate, and we divide and tear down ourselves while the world is moving ahead of us. And the call that I'm making from the summit is that together we can make a difference.
1/3 of our exports, as an Argentinian player in the world food production, 1/3 is through the association of cooperatives. That association, through the years, managed to be independent of international brokers because they work together. They save a lot of money with fertilizers, tools, all you need for production. Yeah? So, and they accumulated funds in order to create the possibilities of having their own funds, not depending sometimes of financial entities. Yeah? Because one of the things that you learn, and I work for a for a bank, is that a bank sometimes have no agriculture experts when they analyze a credit loan. Yeah? It's only figures. They don't know what's behind. They don't know which are the efforts of waking up in the morning trying to, for instance, extract the milk of the goat. Yeah? Sometimes I say, well, we have to educate financial institutions too, because they themselves are losing money for not betting on small producers. But if the Jamaican Development Bank has 9%, and if a financial private institute doesn't want to catch 100% more, as happens in my country, for instance, they could have a credit portfolio of thousands of people repaying that credit. Because it's said, FAO could tell you about that small farmers pay credits at a level of 95, 98%. And if among of those farmers are women, they pay more.
AgriScope will be right back.